Hello folks, this is Kim from rc-drones.com, phoenixflightgear.com, and today I'm going to show you how to disassemble your Inductrix 200 and to install those parts onto the new Phoenix Flight Gear Inductrix carbon fiber frame set. When you get your set, you're going to get a bottom plate out of 1.5mm carbon fiber and a top plate in 1.5mm carbon fiber. You're also going to get all of the nylon hardware that you need, your standoffs, landing gear, and such. Enough double-sided tape to adhere your electronics to the board. Double-sided Velcro so you can attach your battery pack to either the top or to the bottom of the frame, or a Velcro strap to do the same. And this frame is set up so you can attach your battery to either top or bottom, personal preference. You're also going to get a spool of fishing line. Might be difficult to see. There we go. Focus. And this will help tidy up your wires during assembly. A couple of tools that you're going to need. Standard slotted screwdriver for your nylon parts. A small Phillips head screwdriver. This would be a number 0 or a jeweler's screwdriver. A 1.5mm Allen wrench. Not necessary, but a couple of pair of tweezers will be helpful. Straight edge and curved. Pair of scissors. I prefer using smaller scissors like these, just what work for me, and it'll be a little bit easier for cutting some of your foam pieces and your fishing line when you're tidying up wires. One other thing is a pair of side cutters. These would be helpful for trimming some of the plastic parts we're going to have to trim for remounting the camera off of your Inductrix. Alright, so starting in, I like to work over a cookie sheet with some edges and have a little bowl here for any of the spare parts that I need or parts that I'm going to use. So I like working on that. That way I can, if anything falls, it doesn't fall into your carpet where it is never to be seen again. We all know how that is. Alright, so first we're going to start with the disassembly of the Inductrix. Do not pry your prop guards. They just turn ever so slightly counterclockwise and come off. You will no longer need those. Now underneath, there are 3 Phillips head screws. Focus. One here. One here. And one there. And that's going to take the top of the frame off. You do not need these screws for reassembly, so you just set them aside. So once those 3 screws are removed, your cover will come right off, exposing your electronics and everything inside the Inductrix. And real simple with your electronics. They're held in by, let's see here, focus, there we go. You got rubber grommets that hold them into the frame. And this whole assembly will come off once those grommets come out. So the quickest way to do that is from the bottom. Actually, we can do this from the top too. Just give it a quick little pull, and you'll feel those little rubber grommets come right out of their holders. Okay, so now the main frame is loose, but we still are attached at a couple of different points. Your on-off switch, programming switch, is attached here in the back. That unplugs quick and simple like that, as do your motors. So the board is almost free. The only attachment now, excuse me, is where your battery connection is. Let's see, focus, there we go. And that is these two screws right here. And that's going to hold your battery terminal. So that assembly comes off, and you will no longer need this for assembly, for reassembly onto your Phoenix flight gear kit. And we're going to set this frame down for a moment and show you your electronics board. You've got the camera up front. You've got the board and the frame. Now this frame you are no longer going to need, but you are, however, going to take some of the plastic with it for the camera. I'll show you that in a moment. One very important thing, this battery connection, focus, here we go. And doesn't want to, here we go. Your white heat shrink tubing indicates the positive of the board. Black is negative. You have to be very careful on how you hook up your battery pack, and it's not a bad idea to also mark on your battery what side's positive and what side is negative if you plan on using your stock battery. It only plugs in one way, but as you can see, those terminals are exposed. If my camera will focus, if you accidentally touch this polarity wrong, you will fry the circuit board. And that will void any warranty from Horizon Hobby. So be very careful when doing that. So we're going to set the board aside for right now. And we're going to work on taking off our motors. So flipping the copter upside down, you'll see your landing gear. You got 4 points. There are little foam spacers. They're just held on with a little bit of adhesive. And underneath you will see a small screw. That's where our 1.5 millimeter Allen wrench will come in. We will unscrew that. Okay, landing gear is off, so you can now see that there are 3 screws that hold in each motor. So this is where you'll want to also have the new bottom piece of the frame accessible from your Phoenix flight gear kit. Either side does not matter how you install this, but the important thing is this is the front of your frame. So keep that in relation to the front of your Inductrix frame, and that way you can easily put your motors on the new frame without having any issues with orientation. So we're going to do that now. I'm going to set the frame down. I'm going to take our 3 screws out of each motor, install it onto our new frame. Tweezers can also come in handy for these little screws. So those 3 screws are out. Flip the frame back over, and the motor will just pull right out. Be mindful of your wires. Your wire connector will want to come through the frame. Don't pull. That'll push right through there. Just a little bit of effort. Slide right out of the frame. May have to wiggle the plug just a little bit. So that's out of there. So now that we know where this one came from, we're going to immediately install it onto our new Phoenix flight gear frame. What you like to do is when you install the motor, have the pigtail from the wires match with the frame. You see where I'm going there? And that will allow you to line up your screw holes a little easier. Again, that's where our tweezers come in handy. Start the first screw, but do not tighten it all the way. This allows the motor to rest on the frame, but yet still allows you to move the motor around just a little bit so you can find your screw holes. Once you've got 2 screws, you can tighten them a little bit more. That'll help keep lining up the 3rd screw hole a little bit easier. Our 3rd screw is in, and now you can go through and tighten them all down. Tight, snug, but you don't have to stand on them. These are small screws, small motors, just going into carbon fiber. So you don't need a torque wrench or anything crazy like that. So now we showed you that one. I'm going to do the other 4 off camera. Okay, and I'm back. As you see, I have now installed all 4 motors from the same orientation as they came off of the stock frame. Screws are installed. So we'll set this down just for a moment. One other thing, the stock frame only has 1 item left on it, and that is your LED set on-off switch right here. Very simple. Just give this a little tug and it'll slide right out of the frame. The frame is now everything is stripped off of there. You can no longer need this. Excuse me. So this is our on-off switch. What we're going to do is take just the strip of the double-sided tape that came with your Phoenix flight gear kit, and I like to set them right on the tape immediately, and then that way you can see just how much of the tape you need to cut off. So tape is on there. We'll take our scissors. So much tape you need. Pressing that down nice and tight onto the frame, or excuse me, onto the board. Then we'll remove the other half of the adhesive. And this will basically go in the same place that it came off of your stock frame, right in the back, right on the flat surface. Press and hold for a few seconds, and there's your switch attached to the back of the frame. Alright, so we're going to set this guy aside for just a moment, and now we're going to tackle the electronics board. You can see there are 4 small screws that hold our board onto the stock frame. Using our Phillips head screwdriver, we're going to take those off. And you will no longer need these screws. Okay, so the 4 screws are off, holding on to the electronics. The camera is still attached to the board with this small connector right here. These are some very lightweight, delicate wires, so we recommend using your tweezers. Just hold on to the plug, give it a little wiggle, and it'll come off of the board like that. From there, your electronics board, your flight control board, excuse me, will separate from the frame. And we're going to set that aside and tend to the camera. The camera is attached to the board, or excuse me, to the frame. Now what we found is the circuit board is not a good place to adhere your double-sided tape to attach this to the frame. So what we do is we actually cut away the frame here and here. So those side cutters I mentioned earlier, that's where they're going to come in handy. So we're going to make this guy go away. So frame is away, cut off. You're obviously not going to use this any longer, so you can get rid of that. And here's our camera assembly. Still has a nice flat surface for your double-sided tape to adhere to. And that's how we're going to attach it to the top plate of the frame. So for now, we're going to set Mr. Camera aside, so we can get some double-sided tape on it later. bring back our new Phoenix flight gear frame. Now we're getting ready to put your flight control board on the frame. First thing we want to do, however, is we want to take two of the standoffs. These are going to be your frame spacers, these guys right here. You want two of these and two of the nylon screws that came with the kit. These are your center braces, which will also help attach the top plate to the frame. And what we're going to do is we're going to put these two in the middle first, and I'll explain why in just a moment. So, flipping the frame over, first screw goes in through the bottom, and these you can do hand tight for right now. So just tighten that up like such. It's on there. So now those center posts are installed. Our flight control board, if you recall, the orientation or your battery wires went towards the front of your copter. Now the reason we installed these center braces right here is to help give you an orientation, because this board has to go on as flat, as level, and straight as possible. So by using those center braces, those now give you the center point of where to attach your flight control board. My fingers weren't in the way. So you can see the white hole lines up with that center brace here and here. So we're going to set the frame down. We're going to flip our flight control board over, and we're going to put some double-sided adhesive on the flight control board. There is some flat spots in between some of the circuitry. So if you can see here, you got this piece and then that piece. Those are your measurements. So we'll put the double-sided adhesive on, fold it back just a little so we know where to cut our foam. So there's one piece. Focus. Second piece. And third piece. And if you notice, what you're cutting off is just enough to install our camera. So we'll do that later. So now that we have our foam on the board, the flight control board here, we're not going to peel any of this backing off just yet. We want to size everything up in between our stands. So you want to line up your white screw holes with your stands, and also using the cutout in the frame, you want to center this in the center of this large hole here, and center this guy at the point of this hex back here. So this now orientates the frame, excuse me, the flight control board with the frame, gets everything nice and square, flat and level, so the electronics would be happy and the copter will fly straight like it should. So now that we have an idea where we want those, I'll peel off our backing. Being mindful of our posts and where our screw holes line up with the frame. Once we're satisfied with where those sit, there's your flight control board now installed onto the frame. We then will take your battery connector, slide it through the big hole on the bottom, and that's now set up so you can put your battery pack on the bottom. Now if you want, you have a Velcro strap which can go through these holes here. Strap your battery in as such. I'm going to go with the Velcro route to attach my battery to the bottom of this frame. But we give you options, so however you want to do it. Now, we're going to worry about our wiring. Our motor wires still need to be connected. So what we're going to do is give them a twist. Don't go so tight that you feel like you're going to tear the wires, but nice and snug where they twist up. And then you can plug them into your flight control board. Now why we did that is the wires being twisted up are going to help stay out of the way of the propellers. And we're going to tie those down in a moment. So the wire twisting helps keep those plugs away from the motors, and again we'll use that fishing line included with the kit to tie those up. We're going to do the same with your on-off switch wiring. This is already fairly twisted up, so you don't need to twist it up much more. And that we're not going to worry about tying down, because that stays far enough away from your propellers to not be an issue. Alright, so we're going to do that. So next, to help you with tying your fish line, we're going to do the rest of your frame stands. And this will give you something to work from when you're tying your line. So from the bottom of the copter, you've got screw holes on 4 corners. right there. And that's where these frame pieces are going to go in. And again, we're only going to do just hand tight right now. We don't need to tighten them up just yet. Okay, so now we have a total of 6 frame stands. This now is going to allow you to stand the frame upside down on a nice flat surface, nice sturdy surface, to be able to now manipulate your fishing line. So a fishing line that was included in the kit, we're going to use this to tie down our wires so we can make double sure that your motor wires do not get hit by the propeller. That's a bad day. I've been fishing for, I would say, 30 years now, and I still get birds' nests. And of course it's more evident because it's on camera. Alright, well, we're not going to worry about that. I have a backup plan. I have more. And if you're wondering, this is just 10-pound test fishing line. A lot of people also like to use those bread ties. You'll get those a lot of times with product. I like to use the black bread ties, or twist ties as people will call them. Those also help keep wires nice and tidy. So we'll do a loop around the arm and around the wiring. I like to make enough line where I can tie a knot on this side. So we got just your basic knot, nothing crazy. So now we have your extra lead here. And what I like to do is then take that guy and go around again. So now we've got 2 pieces of line going around the wire. So tied off. Wires tied down. And plenty of room for your propeller to spin and not interfere with the wires or cut them up at all. So we'll do that for the other 3. I'll pause the video for that. I'll be back. Okay, and we're back. I know you didn't want to watch me tie the fishing line, so I did that off camera. As you can see, a little close, all of our wires are now clear of the propellers, tied down with fish line. So that'll clear those out nicely. Now we're going to work on putting the top plate on. But first, those 4 screws that we used to put these outside standoffs on, we're going to remove those. And here's why. Because those now are going to be our landing gear. So, slotted screwdriver, holding on to the standoff, we'll take out 1 screw at a time. And it's a little snug in the carbon, so you may have to unscrew it from the carbon as well. So that screw comes out. Set that aside because you will need that in a moment. Now you want to grab your 40mm male-female standoff, and that is just going to screw into place where you just took that screw out of. Here we go. And just finger tight. These are nylon, so you don't want to over torque them. You will break them if you tighten them too tight. So we'll do that now for the other 3. So now you have your standoffs to hold your top plate, but you have some 40mm standoffs for landing gear. And they're a little further outside on the frame as opposed to the stock landing gear, so this is going to make it more stable for your takeoff and landing. Plus it's going to make it easier for us to put our top plate on. So we'll set that down. Top plate. Now the way we're looking at it, the writing PFG, the bottom of that is going to face you. The front of the copter is going to be right here. So this is your front, these are your sides, and this is the back. So as you see, there are holes that are going to line up where you just put your standoffs. And you're going to use the included screws to put those on, but not yet. For those folks who want a battery pack up top, this is the easiest time to do this. The included Velcro strap that came with the Phoenix Flight Gear kit. Based on the size of your battery, there are 2 slots. Focus. Here we go. There are 2 slots to where to use that strap. So if you have a bigger or smaller battery, you can compensate by those straps. So we're just going to put that on there to show you where it goes. I am not going to use it currently for this build, but we're just going to set it there to show you can put your battery on top. Alright, now this is the time where we're going to want to bring Mr. Camera back. Your FPV setup. Focus. It's this guy right here. Now a lot of people are looking at this like, wow, I'm going to have that circuit board wide open. Ah, Phoenix Flight Gear's got you covered there. Just created a nice little 3D printed cover that's going to protect your cover like so. Let's go on there. We'll show you that in a minute. Looks like I may have to trim a little bit more plastic to get that cover on there. You see where I pulled off? Focus. So where there was a screw mount, cut that off. This piece right here, that you can just throw away. No longer going to need it. Our last piece of double-sided adhesive that we included with the kit is going to go right on the bottom, like so. Focus, there we go. And this is going to adhere right to the top plate, like so. Your FPV wire is going to run through the bottom. And there is a small hex. Focus, there we go. That this is going to pop through. That's where Mr. Tweezers come in handy. So we're poked through. So our wire assembly is now through the bottom of the top plate, if that makes sense. And while everything's nice and loose, this is the easiest time to then plug that into your flight control board. So I see how you have the wires poking through. There's our little connector right here. Focus, right there. That's where we're plugging our camera into that you unplugged from earlier. Okay, so now we have to be careful. Like I mentioned, that wire is a little delicate. But now we're plugged in. You see right there, the FPV camera is plugged in right into our flight control board. And then now it's just a matter of attaching our top plate. And again, you want to get your neat little cover. That bad boy is going to slide right up on top of there like that. And included will be a screw and a nut to attach that to the frame right through this tab. We're not going to do that now. This does not come with your Phoenix flight gear carbon frame for the Inductrix 200. This is a separate part, but it is available when this frame is available. Alright, so we've got 6 nylon screws left over. I like to start at opposite corners because you now have a pivot point there, so you can line this one up. And once that one's in, this one can be snugged down. Again, these are nylon. Don't have to tighten them too much at all, just so they're snug. Now that those two corners are snug, all the other ones are going to line up perfectly for you. Alrighty, so your top plate is now on. Frame is almost complete. We have to tend to the battery. The way I set this one up, I'm going to attach mine through the bottom. Remember we mentioned earlier, your white heat shrink is positive. Always keep that in mind when using this plug. A lot of guys are going to want to change batteries and change plugs. Entirely up to you, but understand that once you unsolder this plug from this board, it will void the warranty through Horizon Hobby on that flight control board. So keep that in mind when you want to do that. That is a service we will also offer later in time. So we're going to set this guy on its side. Stock battery pack. As you can see, the way the pins are set up, one goes up, one goes sideways. So as you may remember, the way this goes into the bird, this flat surface here goes along the flat surface of the frame. And that way you can tell what is positive and what is negative. So we've got this plug standing up, this plug standing up. So this side of our battery here, this is our positive side right here. So it's not a bad idea. Grab yourself a pen or a marker and mark it as such if you still plan on using the stock battery. And that way you know this is positive when you plug in to the positive. We have life. So we're going to set the frame aside, and I'll show you how to put your Velcro on real quick. Velcro included. It's going to be stuck together. If not, stick it together. This is going to make life a lot easier for you. Cut it right down the middle, both pieces. So you got your Velcro. Peel it back just a little bit. Find out where the fuzzy side is. Fuzzy, rough. Always put the fuzzy side on the battery. Why? Don't know. Just something we like to do. So peel the adhesive off from the fuzzy side and put it onto your battery. Of course, that's now going to cover up the pretty little positive mark that I just made. May want to mark the battery another way. probably a sticker or a piece of masking tape on this side to tell you it's positive. So got the Velcro on there. We're then going to peel our backing off, holding onto our frame. Try to orient that as best as you can to the center of the copter. And hold that down for a few moments. You now have Velcro attached to both your battery and your copter. So you can now get more Velcro and use this battery interchangeably. Or as I mentioned, if you don't want to mess with that, you've got the strap that's included in the kit to attach to the top. So there you have it. There's your Inductrix 200, now with a Phoenix Flight Gear carbon fiber frame. Much more rigid, much more durable, and pretty darn cool looking too. If you have any other questions, you can contact us at rc-drones.com or phoenixflightgear.com. Thank you for your time.